Assalamualaikum and a very good morning. I am Nurul Shamira binti Rahimi from PSMP TSLF, and I'll be presenting the findings of my research that was implemented during my previous practicum. So the title of my research is Using Finger Point Strategy to Improve Year 5 Pupils Subject-Verb Agreement in Simple Sentence Construction. Okay, I will start my research with the statement of problems, followed by the research objective and research questions, literature review, methodology, and the findings. So the first one is the statement of problem. Okay, what were the problems that my research addressed? So during my practicum, I realized that many of my pupils were not able to write accordingly. So most of my pupils submitted their work with grammatical error in every sentence. So in a lesson. So although the learning objective of the lesson were met, the subject and verb errors committed by the pupils made me realize that the pupils had issues with subject-verb agreement. So this is also supported by Wee, who stated that SBA poses the most difficulty for Malaysian pupils. They have yet to achieve a sound competency level as they still perform language errors, especially in SBA. So when I went through the pupils' exercise books, it was evident that the pupils had issues in constructing simple sentences with the correct use of subject-verb agreement. So the second problem was that I, as a practical teacher, as compared to the comparing other language modules such as listening and speaking or reading and language arts, I find it hard to find ways to plan grammar lessons that brings meaningful yet exciting context. So pupils often get bored in grammar classes, which resulted in them not being able to retain whatever that has been taught by me. So this is also supported by Gunn in 2012, who stated that teachers, including the experienced ones, find it very difficult to teach grammar, specifically in subject-verb agreement. So teachers always teach grammar through teacher-centered explanation and constant relying on exercise books, which are criticized for being ineffective in Malaysian classroom. Okay, so the next is my research objective and the research question. Okay, there are two objectives of this research, which are to determine if finger point strategy help to improve Year 5 pupils' use of subject-verb agreement in simple sentence construction. So the key word here is the word that differentiates this from the second research objective is the word if. So the research question was, does finger point strategy help to improve Year 5 pupils' use of SVA in simple sentence construction? So based on this question, it is evident that the answer will be either yes or no. So the second objective of my research was to identify how does this strategy help to improve Year 5 pupils' use of SVA in constructing simple sentences. So the research question was, how does the strategy help to improve Year 5 pupils' use of subject-verb agreement in constructing simple sentences? So although both research questions are almost similar, the second RQ focus on how does the strategy work to improve the pupils' simple sentence construction. So next is, Pendapatan in 2020 stated that in grammar, having a solid understanding of SVA is critical when making a good impression. So, and it will help to ensure that your ideas are communicated clearly. So one of the most basic structure rules to learn in English is the subject and the predicate in a sentence. So these two divisions of a sentence, subject and predicate, are combined by a verb, and it is where the subject and the verb agreement takes its role in grammar. So anyone who speaks or write without errors in subject-verb agreement SBA is considered to have a good English command. Okay, so next is Gunn in 2012 suggested that the utilization of this strategy, finger strategy, had indicated that her students preferred to apply the finger strategy as compared to the conventional way of teaching grammar. So this strategy was actually adopted and adapted from this researcher Gunn, but the participants were adult students. Her participants were adult students who were sitting from one. So I've chosen this and added some changes such as the underlining technique in the second cycle to teach SBA to Year 5 low proficiency pupils. Okay, next is BAT stated that underlined text is used in sentences primarily to bring importance or to draw emphasis on certain words. This explains the reason why I choose to integrate underlining technique in my second cycle. Okay, so next is combining learning with gestures may increase the participants' memory to remember what is being taught. This is stated by Borja in 2014. Okay, so in my intervention, I also integrated the use of gestures to introduce the rules of subject-verb agreement to the pupils. Okay, this is because by adding movement and gestures to the content, to the intervention, the learning will be more lively, engaging, and more intelligible to the pupils. So I integrated the use of gestures like and fingers like I, U, we, they in the implementation. So to assist the pupils' ability to learn, to remember the rules of SBA more easily. Okay, so next is the methodology, which refers to how I collected my data. So data collection method can be classified into two main parts, which are quantitative data and qualitative data collection. So, and for this study, I have chosen both methods. So, for quantitative data, I have adopted pre and post intervention test because it can measure changes in the participants' knowledge, behavior, and attitude regarding the content, which is the my intervention about subject-verb agreement. So these are the examples of the questions. Okay, the tests were divided into two main parts, which were MCQ, multiple choice question, and the writing activity, a simple writing activity. So MCQ was used because the writing activity could not assess the pupils' overall knowledge of subject-verb agreement because they might only use the verbs and the words that they already know. Okay, so before issuing the test, I consulted the pupils' English teacher for the content validity and to ensure that the tests are appropriate to the pupils' level. For each test, the picture used for the composition task, for writing task, was different. So the arrangement of the multiple choice question, the section 1, for pre and post test of cycle 1 was shuffled to avoid memorization. So for qualitative data, I have adopted a semi-structured interview question and teachers' reflective journal. I adopted a semi-structured interview question because the participants ought to give their opinions on the effect of the intervention on their subject-verb agreement in constructing simple sentences. So due to the participants' poor command of English, I used both languages, Bahasa Melayu, Bahasa Malaysia and English to ask during the interview session. During the interview session, to ease the participants' understanding of the question. So most of the time, the participants responded in Malay as they were not confident to respond in English because in some way it would temper the reliability of the interview as they were not comfortable. Okay, so I accepted the language used by the pupils to respond to the interview question as long as they were able to tell how the intervention has impacted them in improving their subject-verb agreement in writing simple sentences. Okay, so the last one is the reflective journal. Okay, it was chosen as a data collection method as my previous practicum experiences were reflected through the journals. This made me realize that the participants' difficulty in constructing simple sentences with correct subject-verb agreement. So I wrote the journals on to reflect on my teaching as soon as the lesson ended, so that I would not forget what what happened during the intervention. So my supervisor, lecturer also checked all my reflective journals occasionally for content validity. The findings was answered using the research question. So this research question was answered using the result of the pre and post test. The first research question. Does finger point strategy help to improve Year 5 pupils' use of SVA in simple sentence construction? So the answer is yes, because the comparison of the mean score clearly indicates that the mean result of the post-intervention test, which is 84%, is higher compared to the mean of the pre-intervention test, which is 40%. So there is an improvement of 46% between the pre and post-intervention test of the first cycle. Moreover, the mean score increased to 92% for the second cycle, where the underlying technique was introduced to the pupils, to the participants. So this further indicated that the effectiveness of the finger point strategy. So it shows that the participants were able to remember the rules of subject-verb agreement correctly, as it tests on the participants' knowledge on subject-verb agreement. So the second RQ was answered using the analysis of the interview, and there were two emerging themes which were a memorable lesson and fun learning. So memorable activity arose when the participants, all the participants claimed that the intervention has helped them to memorize the rules of SVA easily. This is because integrating body parts such as fingers were very memorable, as they can always refer to their fingers each time they wanted to construct simple sentences with correct SVA. So this was not only limited to verbs such as is and are, but also other auxiliary verbs or helping verbs such as have, has, and do, and does. Therefore, as it was easy for the participants to memorize the rules of subject-verb agreement and the rules of constructing sentences with correct SVA, this indicates that the strategy was effective to the pupils. So for fun learning, the participants also found that this intervention fun and non-threatening, as I utilized chance during the implementation. So the promotion of a low language learning environment, low stress learning environment has become a priority for me, as language lessons always have the tendency to promote debilitative anxiety. So by integrating fun in learning in the intervention, the participants were very engaged in the lessons, which enhanced the effectiveness of the implementation. So the findings for these research questions was also supported by the data from my reflective journal, from my daily reflective journal for data triangulation. So the findings also indicated that the intervention was able to help the participants to construct sentence with accurate use of subject-verb agreement. This is because the analysis showed that the intervention was able to increase the participants' attention towards the lesson. So the use of gestures and fingers managed to increase the participants' attention towards the lesson, as they showed their interest by showing their fingers to the camera during the Google Meet, during the set induction and the presentation stage, where they are required to show their fingers. So consequently, as they were able to stay focused in the lesson longer, so the intervention was also able to increase their participation. This was exhibited when the participants wanted to volunteer themselves during the practice stage, in which different types of activity were given. For instance, during the subject verb agreement bingo game, the participants were very eager, waiting for their turns, in which they began to read their answer, although their friends had not completed the previous bingo yet. So this indicated that the participants were very confident in their answers, where they had to choose the correct form of verbs for the sentences. So the participants were involved very actively in the lesson, which increased the effectiveness of the strategy. Okay, so as the conclusion, the findings of this research proposed that using finger point strategy has worked very effectively in improving the participants' use of subject-verb agreement in simple sentence construction. So the implication is this strategy has brought confidence in the participants, whereby they have improved themselves in terms of constructing sentences with the accurate use of subject-verb agreement. Okay, so for future researchers, they can conduct other research using this intervention to teach other grammatical items such as articles, conjunctions, nouns, or other forms of tenses to the pupils. So these are the list of references, and that's all from me. Thank you.